I think the biggest threat to us is ourselves. We have a resistance to change.
For a long time, we've really struggled with relevancy. We're dotting the I's, we're crossing the T's. We've sort of veered off to the wrong path.
External tech companies are starting to impinge on systems audits. We need to change to react to that.
Hi, Rob Brown here from the Accounting Influencers podcast. We're continuing with a series of panels with experts, influencers, leaders in the accounting world. Occasionally we do big panels, 4, 5, 6 people. Sometimes I like to make it a more intimate panel and bring on a couple of people with some diverse points of view on what is happening with the accounting profession. We are commenting on what's going on right now and what might be coming up in the future. So we bring people together to give you the lowdown, the insights, the high view of what are the key drivers of change. There's a lot going on. I'm going to get the guests to introduce themselves in just a moment, but we're generally talking about the future of accounting and what is happening now and what is coming up. Without further ado, it's a warm welcome to Laura Day-Henderson. Good day, Laura.
Hey, Rob, you okay?
I'm super. Give us a little introduction for our guests. Thank you.
Absolutely. So my name's Laura Day-Henderson. I'm a founder of More Than Bookkeeper, which provides fellow accountants and bookkeepers with a mentoring, support and training required confidently and effectively. Provide business owners with the crucial information, insights and guidance they're required to build a more profitable, sustainable and thriving business. After all, that's what we all want to achieve in our business, all whilst generating additional revenue and profit for their own bookkeeping accounting practice.
Michael Sue, great to have you with us. A little introduction from you, please.
Thanks for having me. I'm so stoked. My name is Michael Sue. My claim to fame business is Deep Sky, which is an outsourced CFO firm for the last 14 years, decade and a half, a long time. Mainly businesses in North America are serving small entrepreneurs between $1 to $20 million in revenue. But my most interesting and my focus right now for the last year and a half have been building the CFO Club, which is really trying to create a community for CPAs and accountants who want to get into the world of CFO advisory, giving them the tools and lessons and the community and accountability that's needed so that they can go out and, serve the entrepreneurial world.
So much changing, so much needed. Lovely to have you with us. Alan Morgan, you're an old friend. You've been on the show a few times. Great to have you with us. Please introduce yourself for our audience.
Thanks, Rob. Pleased to be here today. My name's Alan Morgan. I'm Chief Executive and owner of Kudos International. We're a global network of accountants and auditors with more than 60 members now globally in about 50 countries.
Thank you. Great to have you all with us. Let's start by asking you where the threats are coming from, where the challenges are coming from. Why should accountants change at all? They've been plodding along very nicely for thousands of years and it's been ever thus, but there are a lot of things going on and the industry is described as a state of flux at the moment. So Michael, I'll come to you first on this one. What do you feel that accountants, firms, and even CFOs should be wary of in today's world?
I think it's relevancy. I think for a long time, we've really struggled with relevancy. I got into accounting because I thought it was the language of business. I thought it helped businesses to understand their numbers. But when I got into the profession, I feel like we're following a lot of the rules. We're dotting the I's, we're crossing the T's. We've sort of veered off to the wrong path, right? We started out supporting businesses. Now it's almost like we have our own checklist that we're trying to check off. Whether or not it has value to the business or not, I'm not so sure.
Relevancy is such a great phrase. There is a conversation to be had on the brand of accounting, but to what degree it is attracting the younger generation coming through and filling the talent pipeline. So we may revisit that. Laura, from where you look, what are the threats to accounting or what should the professionals be wary of these days?
I think the biggest threat to us is ourselves. We have a resistance to change. We're not willing to see what change could actually provide to ourselves. So quite often we'll be like, well, it's working as it is. Why should we change anything? What we really need to be doing is embracing that change. But change allows us to really automate the way that we work, be able to free up our time. Because at the end of the day, we're all working really long hours. We're not having that work-life balance. We're not having that time to reset, but also we're not having that time to look at the bigger picture for our clients as well. So by embracing these changes, having a look at technology and what's available to help automate what we can do, day-to-day work, it really helps us provide more value to our clients. But also, when clients are resisting change too, we should be there, leading the way and then holding their hand to go through this change as well and showing them that actually it's not quite as scary as we seem to think it is.
It's a very honest assessment, which you can say because you are speaking from the inside there, you're one of them. And accounting.
I absolutely love change. So I say that I like to think I'm not that person resisting change, but I work with a lot of bookkeepers and accountants, and they are very much, it's great, I can see the benefit of this, but I don't want to change. The change is overwhelming. I don't have the time to go through the change. Actually, we need to invest that time because it's going to provide a benefit in the longer run.
That's a great point. I may actually ask a follow-up question on why accountants are resistant to change. Alan Morgan, you talk to accountants all the time, leaders of firms. Where do you feel the threats are coming from? What should we be wary of?
External threats. And I think part of that comes back to, a lot of it actually comes back to what Michael said about relevancy, I think. And I was listening to something, podcast this morning, talking about how external tech companies are starting to impinge on systems audits in some countries. And also we have the increasing importance of carbon reporting with the California regulations and regulations here in the EU and here in the UK as well. And the fact that a lot of that work will now not necessarily be done by auditors and accountants moving into the future. There'll be other people involved, and they're starting to tread on our toes a little bit. And we need to change to react to that.
Let's just deep dive on this change thing. Laura, I'll come back to you on this. Why are accountants struggling with change?
I think quite often they're a bit worried that maybe the change will take away the value they provide for clients. They don't realise actually the change is allowing them to provide even more value to their clients. The other thing is that they're working all the hours at the moment. Have they got enough hours in the day to implement the change? But actually, they can't see that, yes, it might mean they've got to work an extra few hours this week, but next month they'll have so much more time on their hands to be able to provide more value and take more time off to spend with their family or doing whatever it is they're passionate about. And then, the other thing is that quite often, yes, we are great with numbers, etc. But quite a lot of us are neurodiverse in different ways. It might be ADHD, we might be autistic, whatever it is. Quite a lot of us do have some form of neurodiversity there. Therefore, the change and it all becomes quite overwhelming. But actually, we just need to take one tiny step at a time. We don't need to be, jumping from the bottom of the mountain to the very top of the mountain. All we need to be doing what step we need to do next, move that tiny bit more forward. And over time, we'll gradually get to where we need to be with a change.
Alan, when I think of accountants, I think of doctors as well. There is so much information for them to keep abreast of. So many new laws, regulations. For doctors, it's drugs and treatments and things like that. For accountants, there's so much going on, and the change must be overwhelming. So they prefer to stick where they are, perhaps.
That's right. And in answer to your question earlier to Laura, I think I would probably add into that is that accountants traditionally have had quite a nice living. So there isn't the sort of financial motivation, the financial need to change that really kicks you to actually make that change. I think change is important. And I think we all need to set aside time in our diaries and our schedule to actually make sure that change happens. But the one area that I don't like changing, and I do have resistance to change, you mentioned it just now, Rob, is in regulation. And I think accountants have enough change in our lives. We don't need changes forced upon us that are regulatory changes that perhaps don't need to happen because we haven't actually dealt with the last batch of regulatory changes yet. Yeah. And I think there's a difference between market and technological changes and demographical changes that we have to meet head on, and impose regulatory changes, which I think we should probably rail against sometimes.
Yeah. Michael, from where you sit, how progressive and innovative are the accountants, finance professionals you come across? Not so much.
At all. Not at all. I think it's a good and a bad thing in a sense that I always say I play in an industry kind of like the doctors and the lawyers where we live 100 years in the past. Right. What is very innovative in the rest of the world? It's almost like living in the future in the world of accounting. And it's bad because we're slower. And, like earlier we're mentioning, there are other people coming in, right? Like Alan was mentioning, there was other tech companies that is taking over our jobs. So we're forced to change, but it's also a good thing because we're so far behind. Almost anything that is new could be leap and bounds innovative for the accounting profession.
I'm wondering, who are the change agents? Who is driving change in the accounting profession? You mentioned the tech companies there, Michael, the software providers. Alan, you've alluded to the regulators and the governing bodies, perhaps. Laura, you're talking about the accountants themselves. So let's start with you on this one, Alan. Whose responsibility is it to ensure that the accounting profession changes and stays relevant and is ready for the future?
Leaders in the profession, the leaders in firms, in particular, if you're looking at accounting firms, it has to be up to the leaders to actually to start that change process and to manage that change process. Sadly, as we've already alluded to, that isn't always being done, and the change is being forced by outsiders, by technology, by staffing issues. Those are the things that will eventually drive us to change. And a really good sort of microcosm of that, and an example of that, I suppose, is that the idea of offshoring work has been kicked around here in the UK for the last 25 years, maybe 20 years. And it's only now that change is going through because it's been forced upon people, not by economic issues, but by staff shortages.
Laura, I'm thinking of some of the trends that have happened over the last few years. We've been talking about pricing for years with accountants. We've been talking about cloud for a number of years and digitizing. All of these initiatives come through and these drivers have changed, but still change seems to be quite slow. Whose job is it, do you feel, to change accounting?
So yeah, everybody's, at the end of the day, no matter who we are, whereabouts we sit within the accountancy food chain, we should all be, challenging everything that we do. Is there a better way to do this? Is there a best practice we could be learning from somebody else within the industry? But also, we should be looking at our software providers, our tax authorities, governing bodies, professional bodies, etc., to be teaching us the knowledge that we need to know, showing the insights of us so that we can be learning from that. So it's like, they're the people who should be standing at the front going, this is what's happening in the worldwide industry. These are the challenges you're going to be facing in the next, 6 months. Everything's changing so quickly, but we can't really be looking at 5 years ahead. We need to be looking at, what's coming up in the next 3 to 6 months, 12 months max. But it's everybody's responsibility effectively to challenge how we're doing things and make that change.
I'm just thinking, Michael, if we say it's everyone's responsibility, the problem with that is that nobody does anything because they think everyone else is going to do it. So whose job do you feel it is to drive change in accounting so we stay relevant?
I honestly think, humans are just resistant to change in general. Accountants more so, but everybody is resistant to change, right? And I also believe that change are almost always forced. Alan earlier said this, the problem with accountants is that we had a good life. Everybody lived, and the issue with a good life is that, the saying that good is the greatest enemy of great.
Yeah.
Right. And change is painful. Right, change is extremely painful, and I do agree with Laura where change is everybody's responsibility. But I'm also not so stressed about, and we talked about this in North America as well. Always going back in these conferences and leadership conferences, talking about whose responsibility is it to change it. Sure, the leaders got to drive the change, but the leaders are the people that are the most comfortable. In reality, I think it's going to be the new guys. It's going to be people outside of the industry. It's going to be, the youngin who is looking around going, hey, I don't want to do the old 10, 20 years, right? And that's going to enact change because they feel like there's a better way. And then it's only when those people make a change, you're going to have people follow suit. They're going to realize, oh, wait, like this guy is getting way ahead of me. And then because of necessity, they're forced to change. But I think the older generation, the leaders, the guys who are the partners, the firm leaders of these top 100 firms, they don't need to change because they have a good life.
That's a fair point, Alan, isn't it? The older inhabitants of the accounting world, the partners, they've got equity, they've got big pots of money, they're making money, the firms are doing well, the firms are growing. Why should they change? They've got a vested interest in the status quo.
I love the fact you come to me as the elder statesman, Rob. Thank you.
Well, it was only because you mentioned, Alan, that leaders are the drivers of change here and should be keeping us relevant. That was the main thing. You and I are both of an age.
I think the better leaders are the ones that keep their entrepreneurial spirits up on a long-term basis. And I think that's down to, I suppose, then the rest of the firms to make sure they choose leaders that will continue to inspire even when their lifestyle becomes comfortable. And I think that's something which is really important. And I can think of, one person in the profession with a fantastically, probably more than one, with a fantastically entrepreneurial spirit. even in the accounting profession.
It does tend to be rare, though, doesn't it, to be fair, that they are built like that?
I think it's important for many reasons, and particularly inspiring the talent of the future as well.
And to Michael's point, we'll talk about talent later, but to Michael's point, it will be the new generation coming through that don't think like the old generation. They will probably drive change up. Let's talk about an audience here that is responsible for change in some respects. They're certainly responsible for the brand of the profession. That's the governing bodies, the professional institutes, the people that rule over the accounting profession, if you like, and who are largely responsible for the accounting qualifications. Laura, in your view, how relevant and fit for purpose are these bodies to which you'd probably be a member or two?
Historically, they've not been very relevant whatsoever. I know a lot of them are looking to change at the moment and actually start to support those that set up practice. Historically, they've been very much geared towards industry, supporting those within an industry setting, not looking at those supporting business owners and how you can support business owners grow better. They teach you textbook things, but don't actually show you how to apply that in a practical way. So it might be that, yes, you learn about your debits and credits and an asset goes in here, but it doesn't teach you about, well, what if somebody sells an asset and, trades it in, and you've got the interest because we've done it on the finance group. It doesn't teach you all those actual real life examples on how you would do that within the accounting space.
Yeah.
They also don't teach you soft skills. For me, an accountant, it doesn't matter what your qualifications or your experience is. You can teach people how to do bookkeeping, how to do accounting, how to do tax returns, etc. How to provide first service. So if you can't teach them how to listen, you can't teach them how to be empathetic, you can't teach them how to be problem solving. I think there needs to be a lot more within these softer skills and how to enhance those within people who want to work in the accounting and bookkeeping industry. That's what's really important.
Yeah, Michael, that does play into your world very much, the advisory side of it, the CFO side. Many of the qualifications in accounting, they don't deal with a lot of that softer side, leadership, persuasion, interpretation, analysis, even the ethical side. I know they're trying to bring stuff in. What's your view on the relevance and fit for purpose of the governing bodies and qualifications?
I agree with Laura. There's none, right? I mean, at governments or any governing body, I feel like they're always the slowest one, and that is part of it. It's interesting that you brought up the whole CFO world. I mean, we have always had audit and tax, but there's never a path forward. Every school out there, every college degree or every cram school is teaching you how to pass a CPA exam. But we all know that once you pass a CPA exam, the real world starts. And being a tax specialist and an audit specialist and not to even mention we used to batch business advisory and consulting into a batch. But even then, it's a world. Is it SOX compliance? Is it IT audit? So on and so forth. The world is crazy. So part of the reason why I started a CFO club is because I wanted to be that change agent. I wanted to offer, because I didn't have a path forward. I wanted to create that ability for people, sort of a roadmap. I don't think I've figured it out, but I want to be the one of the first guys that say, hey, this is what I'm doing and it's working out pretty well. Here are also 5 or 10 other guys that are doing it. And then perhaps we can build from there. And then I think the governing body will then follow suit.
Yeah. Alan, you of most people I know could probably name 10, 15, 20 governing bodies. We know some of the main ones, but you deal with a lot of the more specialized ones. What's your take on this question?
I think that we probably, in the nicest, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, should probably give up on the accounting association, on the professional organizations. They are there to filter you through to get the qualifications.
Yeah.
And that's about it. And then they can govern your ethical behavior after that. And that's about it. And then when you start going into specializations, you go into I think Michael made a great point there, that he would be the go-to person for the advisory skills in having set up the CFO club. To me, that makes a lot of sense. And also what I'm seeing in the area of the professional bodies is it emerges in that area. I think that will continue. So in Ireland, we've just had CPA Ireland and the Irish Institute agreeing to get together. The institutes in Australia and New Zealand merged a few years ago. And I see that path continuing in the next 5 to 10 years.
We have had the merger of the AICPA and CIMA, but certainly in North America, a lot of the state societies run quite autonomously and they're doing their own thing. Here in the UK, Laura, we have the ACCA, ICA, WAAT, and they're all kind of doing their own thing. So I wonder if there will be consensus, and we'll see where that goes. Let's talk about talent for a moment. And Michael, I'll start with you on this one. We know there's a black hole to some degree, not just in accounting, in a lot of professions, but we do fear slightly for the future in terms of filling the gaps. There are less people doing accounting degrees. There are people leaching out of accounting and going into tech and industry and other places. How would you brand or reposition accounting to attract back some of the best minds?
You know, I say this, right? When we were growing up, accountants were sort of the joke, right? It's like, oh, Sally from accounting. It means nerdy and boring and, you know, all of that, right? Guys without personality goes into accounting. But what I say today, you know, I go around the world and I say this, I've worked with entrepreneurs for a decade and a half. I said, accountants and CPAs are in this unique position to create tremendous value, you know, in the business world. We always look at the number one. We always look at the Steve Jobs of the world, the CEOs of the world. And sure, through Tim Cook and so on, you start seeing COOs. But nobody looks at the CFO. Nobody looks at, you know, I would consider CFO, COO, or any of the C-suites to be second in command, right? And I think that's what we need to, you know, show them. It's that not everybody, I think it's silly in North America right now. We go to accounting conferences and some people are like, oh, accountants need to be more entrepreneurial. But the reality is that they are not entrepreneurs. They didn't go into accounting because they're entrepreneurs. They would have been an entrepreneur if they are, right? But I do think accountants need to understand entrepreneurs and understands the position that they're in and how they can provide tremendous value in their position, right? To the whole society. So I'm not a Star Trek fan, but I always love to like refer that accountants are the Spock to Captain Kirk, right? And I think we need to stop worrying about the dotting the I's and crossing the T's and start seeing it. And Laura alluded to it a little earlier, the soft skills, but also the application of accounting, you know, to achieve dreams, aspirations of businesses or even personal lives.
Alan, at Kudos International, you have hundreds of member firms all over the world, and this talent question must come up a lot.
It does. Actually, we spoke about it at our recent virtual meeting, which we had about a week ago, the fact that the lack of talent is a barrier to audit quality because the numbers of staff aren't there. But I think as a profession, we need to do more to persuade the younger generation that actually auditing is actually quite interesting, and actually accounting is quite interesting because you actually get to speak to business owners and directors of large companies at an incredibly young age, which in other roles you won't get to do. You get to challenge power much earlier than in many, many other roles. And it's a fantastic way of learning about businesses because the amount of businesses you see, it's a fantastic training ground for entrepreneurs.
That's the point, Laura, isn't it? It can be exciting. We probably don't sell it well enough. And you're in the game, you're passionate about it, but those success stories don't often come out.
I think too many young people think that accountancy is all about you've got to be good at maths and, you know, you've got to be quite boring and not have much character to yourself. Actually, it's totally the opposite. The more character you have, the more easy it is to get clients coming to you. And also, you don't have to be good at computers at all for you these days. Yes, back in the olden days, you did have to know a bit of mental arithmetic, but these days, I'm dyslexic myself. I can't use a calculator. It doesn't matter. I can still provide the full set of accounts. I can still review things. I can still problem solve and help business owners. I think we need to be repositioning ourselves as like a business best friend. We go into all of these businesses. We're there as a like support function. We're there to bounce ideas off of them, look at what's going well in the business, look at what's going wrong in the business, help them, you know, find a solution to become a better business. Talk to them, like Michael said earlier. Why have they set up their business? What is it they want to achieve in personal life? Yeah. Our job as an accountant isn't to keep the, you know, tax people happy. The same tax, because obviously I know this going out to across the globe. So whoever that is in your area, it is to make sure that the business owner and their members of staff are achieving their personal goals in life. So we need to support business owners to grow their business to a point where they can give their staff pay rises, etc., bonuses and things. And, you know, it's that, you know, impact of making sure that every single person within the whole economic sphere is getting what they need from that business.
Let's talk about the tech. It's another piece of the puzzle. Alan, we think audit's fairly stable in its advancement and innovation, but there is a huge amount of tech coming into audit and software. But generally, in the accounting scheme of things, how do you feel the tech software providers could serve accountants better?
That's a difficult question to answer, and I think it's from the software vendors' perspective. I think what they could do better is to really make sure that their customers implement the software better.
Yeah.
We can all think of software that we probably bought ourselves that we've had a failure to implement because we've not taken the time to actually implement it. And I think that's something that vendors need to work with their customers, accounting firms, more on, making sure that actually what firms are buying is actually implemented so they get the maximum return on investment. And you're right, Rob, just to move away from the question a little bit. I think in audit, technological changes will happen at pace the next 5 years. And I think audit will look completely different in 5 years' time.
Yeah. Laura, you're on the front line. You're probably managing hundreds of different apps, software products, platforms, everything else. How do you feel the tech providers serve you? What could they do better?
I think what the majority of them need to do, and some of them do it really well, but the majority of them don't listen to the people actually using the software. It is us that they're trying to serve, but they have these assumptions that what our problems are is X, Y, and Z, but actually what our problems are very different to what they assume they are. So we need to have a lot more feedback sessions with the people using the software to find out what can they be doing in the software differently to help make us be able to, use it and for it to help alleviate a lot of our problems that we're facing.
Michael, when you look at the modern day advisor, there is a whole slew of forecasting, analysis tools, advisory tools, so many different apps. How are the software vendors playing their part in this world?
I just got to mirror what Alan and Laura said. It's just there's a lot of software out there, a lot of cool innovations, but surface level, right? You mentioned forecasting. There's so many forecasting software, and most of them, they're amazing to look at during demo. You buy into it, and then as soon as you play with it, it's pretty useless. It's pretty useless, right? And it's just, you got to understand the problem that you're trying to solve. You got to understand it is never about the tech. It's just like my clients come to me, they think, just by switching from QuickBooks to Xero, it solves their accounting problem. It doesn't, right? They all have their own problems. They all have their own faults. You got to fix your accounting problem and your business problem. Then the tech comes after, right? So it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg. I think the profession have to fix itself. We have to fix ourselves and understand what is it that we're trying to provide and help and so on and so forth. And then having tech add to that. And I think I'm trying to see like how long we can go without having AI come up. And I didn't want to be the first person that bring it up, but I guess I would. My prediction, even in the business world, and I said this to my business clients, is that in 10 years' time, we'll see very small companies with very big companies with very small headcount. We will see $1 billion company or $10 billion company with a staff of 10, right? Thanks to the technology and all of that. Now, the question is, how do we, the accounting profession is going to follow suit with that. How do we play into that world?
Yeah, that's going to be fascinating to play out. Let's give you a platform to right some wrongs and bust some myths. Next question is in the Zoom chat for you wonderful panelists. And Laura, let's start with you on this one. Is there any faulty thinking or fake news or long-standing myths you think is holding the accounting profession back?
My number one with the entire accounting profession is that everyone seems to think the tax authorities are our clients. They're not. Business owner is our client. It is, yes, compliance is a legal requirement, but it's not a necessity. The definition of necessity is something that's needed in order to live. Compliance doesn't allow a business to live, never mind thrive. What we need to do as accountants and bookkeepers is help our business owner thrive. Yes, we have to provide compliance services and make sure the tax authorities are happy, but that isn't what the business owner needs. The business owner needs us to be there, providing with CFO services, so forecasting, management reporting, holding them accountable, listening to them about what their problems are and helping them, find solutions. So identifying that, yes, the sales aren't going to be quite as high as I expect. What can we be doing differently to help combat that? That's what our job as an accountant or a bookkeeper should be, not just making sure that the bookkeeping is done up to date so that we can get the tax return filed on time.
Yeah. Alan, that's very much a case of the tail wagging the dog, isn't it? I know accountants who spend more time on the telephone to HMRC or the IRS or whoever it might be than to their own clients, and they're playing that game. Are there any myths you think need busting or any wrong thinking in the profession, Alan?
Yes. And I think it's the current thinking that private equity can plug the gap of a lack of succession planning within firms.
Okay.
Because those firms, even if they attract in private equity investment, will still need to think about the leaders of tomorrow. Because in order to satisfy the thirst of the private equity companies, they will still need to have advanced people at the sort of partner skills level to be able to service those clients, to have a hope of satisfying the thirst of private equity.
Michael, you've been very candid so far on what's going well and what isn't going well. What do you think is holding the profession back in terms of its mindset, its thinking, its approach?
I think that a lot of people think, they want to change the profession. At least in North America, when I get into these conferences, everybody talks about how do we get people to change? And my answer to that is always, well, we don't need to get anybody to change. Go back to that necessity. Well, number one, we don't need to get anybody to change who doesn't want change, right? But number two, for those who do want to change, the answer to elevating the profession as a whole isn't another accounting class, isn't another technical SKE, isn't more regulation, isn't more learning how to dot the perfect dot and crossing the perfect T. But it is what Laura alluded to earlier, which is the soft skills, the application of what we all already have learned in accounting school. It isn't about how do I forecast better. A forecast is a forecast. It hasn't changed for 500 years, right? But it's the application of that forecast, what the forecast means for a business, and then the ability to understand that, to catch issues, and then to deliver that to our clients in a way where, again, helping them achieve their personal or corporate goals, right? So it's the application of technical skills, what I call technical SKE, skills, knowledge, and experience, instead of more skills, knowledge, and experience.
Well, let's see if we can guide the accounting world and the ecosystem that surrounds it in a way by giving you a magic wand. Alan, you can kick us off on this one. If you had a magic wand or genie out of the bottle, one or two things that you'd like to see happen overnight with the accounting world or any of the players in it, what comes to mind for you?
Two things, both almost very opposite issues to each other. One is that something which I said earlier on, that audit regulation, tax regulations, actually, and changes to those can be paused for 2 or 3 years so that we actually see how things play out before things are actually changed. Yeah. Because sometimes in the world of regulation, when changes are put through, before the full effect of the last changes can actually be seen. But I think more importantly than that, what I would like to see is a recognition in firms that they need to train their staff in technology and invest in technology training as well as software. And by that, I mean probably actually teaching their staff how to use AI properly and GPT prompts, etc., but also Python programming potentially as well. I think that's going to be a big skill for accountants in the future.
Goodness, I can see accountants cringing, thinking I've already got enough to figure out with the technology, and now they want me to be coding and Python and everything else. But to the point, Alan, it's, I guess, you're wanting them to stay relevant and adjust to the upcoming world.
Absolutely. And to give an example of that, our member firm in the Lebanon already have staff that can do Python programming and have used it to great effect on their audits.
Yeah. Crazy. Michael, if I let the genie out of the bottle for you and you could click your fingers, what couple of things would you want to happen overnight?
I will build on top of what Alan was talking about. I think it's the education and the elevation, right? The education is going to what drives the industry change. I think firms or anybody in the profession have to embrace that, right? I don't know about Python coding, but you need to know the existence of Python coding, right? Because again, with AI, by knowing that you can use Python coding to do X, Y, and Z, you're able to feed it in and ask AI to write the code for you, right? So you have to know the existence. I think learning fundamentally changes very differently. And then the other thing that Alan talked about, which was also, as technology is replacing all the mundane stuff in the middle, in the bottom or the middle, or, private equity and so on and so forth, you still need those leaders who closely understands the needs and wants of the businesses that we serve and the technical SKEs of the accounting profession to be able to marry the two together. So I think that's what I would like to see, to have that understanding that the only way for us to elevate our profession as a whole is through education internally and externally, right? Is to promote that.
So let's make those two concrete wishes, Michael. If we could audit those wishes to see if they've come true, how would you articulate that? So more education, great.
Yeah.
But let's wish for that overnight, what would happen?
That we have standards and access to a roadmap. I guess what we were saying, right? We all have a standard and roadmap to get the CPA license, but then to have the access to these standards, whether it's audit or tax or CFO-ship, right? To have that roadmap for whoever chooses the rest of the path, and then be able to continue to accelerate on it.
Well, Laura, we usually get 3 wishes from a genie. I'm giving you 2. What have you come up with?
So I think for me, it'd be for business owners to realise the value that accountants and bookkeepers can provide to them and be willing to pay for it. But in order to do that, we need to be showing them the value we can give to them. So my second wish would be for every accountant and bookkeeper, no matter what your qualifications are, what professional body you're with, is to provide your clients with advisory services. Left from a compliance, yes, it has to be done, but focus more on the advice service and how you can support your business to grow and thrive.
That would definitely make a huge difference. Well, thank you, everybody, for your insights, your comments today. I'm going to ask you to leave us with a message of hope to our audience. They'll be watching on YouTube. This podcast is available on all the podcast channels, goes out to 153 countries and 40,000 listeners now. We've pulled things apart a little bit. We tried to put them back together, but let's leave them on a high. Michael, what message of hope would you give about why this is a good time to be in the accounting and advisory world?
I think right now is the best time to be in this world, because I said it in the beginning of this call, which was, accountants and CPAs are in this unique position to provide tremendous value to the world of business, right? And the world today, through technology and travel and all of the innovations, we're so close together. Like we're having this call in 4 different places around the world, right? So right now, more than ever, you can learn faster, you can deliver faster, you can be anywhere in the world, serving any business anywhere else in the world. So incredible time.
Laura, I know you're very passionate about this profession you've served for so many years and continue to do so. What would be your message of hope about why this is a great time to be in this game?
It's a perfect time because no longer do you have to be constrained to a box. The world really is your oyster. You can follow what you're passionate about. Yes, you could be an accountant, but you don't have to do tax returns. You don't have to do whatever it is that you don't enjoy doing. You can just focus on the area that you're really passionate about. So for me, that would be advisory, CFO services. For somebody else, that might be doing the tax returns, that might be doing the day-to-day data entry work. But it's all about what really brings you joy and what you enjoy doing. Whatever you don't enjoy doing, you can go, actually, I now acknowledge that I don't enjoy doing that anymore. Going forward, I'm just going to focus my time, my energy on the bits that I can actually really add value to because I'm passionate about that area.
It speaks certainly to the variety of a career in accounting and finance. There is so much you can do and so much technology allows us to do. Alan Morgan, you've been an advocate for accounting for so many years now, and you champion the cause from the rooftops. What message of hope would you leave our audience with today about why this is a great time to be in accounting?
Great time to be an accountant because we have the ability to provide a greater breadth of services. Not only are we talking about the advisory services that Laura and Michael have majored on, but there's also a whole swathe of new consulting services around sustainability and DEI reporting that we have barely scratched the surface on so far, and accountants are ideally placed to provide that moving into the future. And I think it's a great source of future consulting and reporting work.
Well, that certainly is a message of hope. Thank you all so much for your comments today. We really appreciate your passion and your insights.